Hello everyone and welcome to SwitchUp. In today's video we're going to look at the 10 games that got the best review scores on the channel for last month, the month of course of May. A quick mention of our channel sponsor Pixel Heart, creators of low print run physical games for a variety of consoles including of course the Switch, and we have a promotional code for you here, it's on the screen now, SwitchUp which will get you 15% off of your order. I will stick a link to their website in the top pinned comment. We reviewed 16 games in total last month, so of course 6 of the games didn't make the list, but I will put the links to all 10 games in this video, plus those 6, and a couple of episodes of this series from the last couple of months in the top pinned comment too, if you want to have a watch. Okay, which games made the list? Well, let's find out. Coming in 10th place for the month, we had Layers of Fear 2. This is a psychological horror game set in a first-person perspective and joins its predecessor Layers of Fear in coming to the Switch. This time you take on the role of an actor who has accepted the role in a film set aboard an ocean liner by an enigmatic director. When you turn up, you realise that things have gone awry and things start to descend from that point onward. It's quite similar to its predecessor in many ways. The game is very much more about atmosphere than it is about actual gameplay. You'll be exploring the rooms of the ocean liner, solving puzzles to try and move further on, whilst also picking up items, some of which you'll need to progress and some that pad out the story. Where it does differ from that first game though is that there are encounters with monsters this time where you'll need to run and hide or escape, otherwise it will be game over. Now the first game was criticised by some people for not having any such encounters and being quite slow paced, and I do get the impression that Bloober Team almost felt obligated to put these parts in this time to try and appease that crowd. There is even the option to turn them off, and this certainly seems to add strength to the argument that they were kind of caught between two stools. I didn't think these sections added much to the game and I preferred that slow build of atmosphere from the first one, but having said that, this second game is still very enjoyable. Technically it's a good port and runs pretty well. There are a couple of stutters, but on the whole it's come across in good nick, and I would certainly suggest horror fans put it on their wishlist at the very least, maybe with a view to seeing if it gets a potential discount near Halloween. It got a SwitchUp score of 76%. In 9th place then we had a game called Pathway. This game comes from Chucklefish, although this time on publishing duties rather than developing, and has a lot more in common with a game like XCOM than Chucklefish's own Wargroove. It's a turn-based strategy game set in 1936 which sees you on hunt for treasure. You make your way across the map and sometimes there will be story events that crop up, presenting you with different scenarios and ultimately leading you into a battle. You have a team of 16 characters to ultimately pick from once unlocking some of them, and the game does have roguelike tendencies in that if you lose a run then you must start again, and some of the scenarios will change from last time, plus your previous team will be hospitalised for your next run and you must pick other people. It has a good layer of strategy to it and sells for a very decent price of £12.99 or your regional equivalent, and on the whole is definitely a game worth considering. On the more negative side there were some performance issues, and it is a game that suffers from having text that is very small, so those with a Switch Lite may need to watch out for this. Overall though, a very good game, and it got a SwitchUp score of 76%. In 8th place for the month was a game called Nongunz Doppelganger Edition. This is another roguelite where you go on runs trying to make more progression and get further into the dungeon each time. It does however have a few tricks up its sleeve that differentiate it from some of its competition. First off, it has almost a clicker element to it which will see you earn money as you play for finding certain things. There's also a card system that will give you passive abilities and build up your base stats the more of them you collect. The problem is the game doesn't explain any of this very well at all. Completely by design, don't get me wrong, but there are certain parts such as the aforementioned card system that did need more of an explanation than they got. I did enjoy playing through it though and finding some of this out for myself, and it's definitely very tightly designed once you get into it, plus that monochromatic art style really is quite striking, but it's a game where you'll definitely need to be on board with that concept of going in blind and learning all of the key mechanics for yourself, otherwise you probably will feel like you've wasted your money. It got a SwitchUp score of 77%. Then in 7th place we had Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World. This is a remake of a Mega Drive game, Monster World 4, and sees you take control of Asha in a 2D action platforming adventure. To be fair, the gameplay has held up very well, and the new art style is certainly very charming. It could perhaps have done with a few more quality of life features, bearing in mind it is a remake. Things such as a map would have been useful, as whilst the game is relatively linear, there are times where you'll have to backtrack and it would have just made for a more pleasant experience. That being said, it is still fun to play, although the price you are paying of about £31.49 for 6 to 8 hours gameplay is pretty high. What I will say on that point is there is a physical version available, which also includes the original game Monster World 4, something that doesn't come with the eShop version, and I've seen that physical version selling for cheaper than its eShop counterpart. Definitely the way to go in my opinion. This one got a SwitchUp score of 77%. Coming in at number 6 for the month then we had Subnautica, one of the anticipated titles for the month. This survival game made its way to the Switch along with its sequel, which no doubt we'll get to soon. In terms of the game itself, it's still the same fantastic experience that's been available elsewhere, with a beautiful yet daunting world to explore, and the ecosystem around you feeling incredibly organic. It can be quite daunting to play, but if you are into your survival games, this one is pretty much a no-brainer. That being said though, there were some issues, mainly with performance, as I'm sure some people would have expected, although not in terms of how the game runs, running at a pretty consistent 30 frames per second, but more so with things such as draw distance and pop-in, which can mire the experience a tad, as they manage to just break that immersion every so often. If you want the game on the go though, and you can look past these issues, then the experience itself will definitely win over, and it got a SwitchUp score of 77%. In 5th place then, one of the earlier reviews in the month, this was a game called The Colonists. This is a real-time strategy game which definitely had vibes of The Settlers about it, and sees you trying to build up a colony with the help of your robots. It includes both peaceful and competitive missions, meaning that whilst it's quite a challenging game, it does have a relaxing vibe to it too, and the gameplay is definitely very enjoyable, especially to those that like the genre. There were a couple of minor bugs that ultimately brought the score down a tad, but it still comes recommended and it got a SwitchUp score of 80%. In 4th place then, we have a game that I alluded to earlier. This is Subnautica Below Zero, the sequel to the 6th place game on this list, and in terms of the gameplay experience, very similar and just as awe-inspiring / terrifying as you do your best to try and survive. Particular praise has to go to the audio and the soundtrack, which is fantastic like its predecessor, perhaps actually surpassing it this time. And whilst some of the technical issues mentioned in that first game have been improved this time, draw distance is much better for example, it does seem to have taken its toll on the frame rate, with the frame pacing in particular being quite poor, which does lead to some stuttering. It does improve on some of the clunkier aspects of the first game though, such as recipes for crafting, and a culmination of some of these bits is why it's placed a few places higher on the list than its predecessor, and it got a SwitchUp score of 80%. Into the top 3 now then, and the 3rd place game for the month was actually chronologically the first review of the month. This is new Pokemon Snap. This sequel to the much loved Nintendo 64 game Pokemon Snap arrived on the Switch to high anticipation from fans of that particular game. To all intents and purposes, I guess it's an on-rail shooter, but instead of a gun, of course, you have a camera, and you will be taking pictures of Pokemon in their natural environment and being scored on those pictures, receiving points and stars, and there are 4 different star ratings for each Pokemon, meaning you will need to find them doing certain poses to get each of the stars. There are a few different environments to explore, and the world itself does look lovely, plus the gameplay, whilst it certainly won't be for everyone, is a funny blend of relaxation, but can get quite manic if you miss the shot you want. On the more negative side, the progression system isn't explained particularly well, with it not always clear how you unlock the next levels, but once you get past this, it's definitely a lot of fun, albeit it is quite highly priced, as is the case with most Nintendo first party releases. On the whole though, it got a SwitchUp score of 85%. In second place for the month then was the game Snowrunner. Now there is already a game in this series on the Switch, that being Mudrunner American Wilds, and they are games that err on the side of simulation, seeing you in the driver's seat of many large vehicles trying to complete certain missions, all based around a very difficult and challenging environment, full of the hazards that such an environment would present to you. Completing each quest will earn you money, which will see you able to upgrade each of your vehicles, and you can also find some of these upgrades scattered about on the map. It's quite a niche game for sure. I'm sure there will be many people that this won't appeal to at all, but it does have quite a hardcore fan base, and even for non-fans, I know from playing the first one myself, it is the sort of game that can draw you in, and before you know it, you've played a fair few hours. There are some negatives such as some pop-in, and it could do with a patch to fix some of these issues, plus the price definitely won't be for everyone, but on the whole it got a very impressive SwitchUp score of 86%. And the top scoring game for the month, quite a surprise this one really, is a game called Rising Hell. Now this is a vertical playing roguelite where you have to make your way up a tower, killing enemies as you go, earning yourself coins to then spend in certain rooms that you come across to buy yourself perks that make you stronger. There are gems that you can find that save between runs so you can unlock newer characters and new weapons to then try the run again, and the whole thing just has a fantastically visceral feel to it due to the fluidity of the combat. There are big boss battles as well as you make your way through hell, and it's just one of those really pleasant surprises that you find every so often on the eShop that's selling for a fantastic price, by the way, of just £7.99 or your regional equivalent, an absolute steal for that price. There were a few stutters to the game, and for me the character's walking speed didn't quite match the pace of the combat, but these are minor niggles, and if you have any sort of love for roguelites at all, and even if you don't, to be perfectly honest, for the price it's going for, this one is definitely worth considering. It came out of nowhere really to steal a march on the competition and take first place, and it got a SwitchUp score of 88%. So there you have it then, there are the 10 best scoring games on the channel for the month of May. As I said, there were 16 games reviewed by us in total, so 6 games didn't even make the list. Some big ones down there like Warhammer, Man-Eater and Shin Megami Tensei 3, so links to all of those reviews, plus these 10 here, will be in the top pinned comment. Another quick mention of our channel sponsor, Pixel Heart. Please do check out their website to see the selection of low print physical games they offer. As I said, that code SwitchUpShing will get you 15% off of any potential order. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, stay safe of course, and until next time, happy gaming.